Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome back to another LinkedIn Live as a part of Build Your Career in Salesforce series. We are super excited to have you all with us. I'm your host, Hasti, and today we'll be discussing about Salesforce security layers and users' access to data. What exactly is data security and why is it important? Basically, data is a priceless resource for any business or organization um, that is generated, acquired, saved, and exchanged. A company can avoid financial loss, reputational damage, a decline in consumer trust, and brand deterioration by safeguarding it from internal and external corruption and unauthorized access. To solve this pressing and consistent issue, Salesforce provides a comprehensive and flexible data security model to secure data at various levels in order to provide a security model that satisfies numerous distinct legitimate business scenarios. Salesforce also offers sharing tools to open up and permit secure access to data based on business requirements. To discuss all of this, today we have a special guest speaker who is going to help us navigate various Salesforce security levels and give us in depth knowledge about users' access to data. Let's welcome Marilo Mehta. Marilo is a Salesforce MVP, president of LDA Balkan, Salesforce and Slack community leader Albania, and Salesforce and Slack certified admin. Hi Marilo, welcome to our LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Hello, Hasti. Thank you for the great presentation you did for the data security and for my presentation. As Hasti said, I'm a Salesforce MVP and Salesforce community group leaders in Albania, also Slack community group leaders, and also organizer of the Salesforce conference in Albania for 3 years here. And I've been a trainer for internships, for 2 internships we have done in Albania for in the Salesforce ecosystem. And we can jumpstart now on the data and security. And first, as you see in the screen, is build your career in Salesforce ecosystem. It's very important. So to jumpstart your career in the Salesforce ecosystem and to find the right tools how to jumpstart your career there. Salesforce last week announced a new certification, which is the Salesforce Certified Associate, and is very useful for young people, for students, and for people who wants to start and to change their career into Salesforce ecosystem. It's an easy one certification. It needs 1 month to 6 months of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, and you can jumpstart with that certification associate in your profile, and then you can achieve more certifications in Salesforce, and you can go more to find a better job. And as Salesforce announced, it, there will be thousands and millions of jobs worldwide due to the Salesforce ecosystem economy. So just use this opportunity, everyone. And to jumpstart the Salesforce security layers and the user access to data. Okay, going next slide. What are the Salesforce three main data-related frameworks? As you see, this is the organization platform. This is called the org, the production. In this case, you will have a production, you will have which is the organization where you are going to work for, and or you will have a sandbox or a playground. Let's say which are a production organization but are not live. They are used for testing. And in this case, if you see here, this home, chatter opportunity, leads, tasks, files, accounts, contacts, campaigns, and more. These are all tabs. And these are the visual presentation in Salesforce platform, which are called objects. These objects are the table in the Excel. If you compare the analogy with the Excel files, this is a table. And it contains rows and it contains columns. This object accounts, let's say, is the object here. And if you see down here, these are all the accounts records. These are records are rows in the Excel data. The analogy is the table in the Excel is the object, and rows in the Excel are the records. If you see here, you can see 11 records, and each record has different fields. If you see account name, it's a field. For the record first record, if you see Maria, each communication is a field, which is the account name field. And if you go more, for example, phone to the second record, Maria, the phone is a field, which is a number field. And then the three, the object, the records, and the fields. These are the three main data related on Salesforce, which store data on Salesforce, and the administrator, the associate, you can manipulate this and make more easy for business user to find information, to have their security, to have their accessibility for them with these three main related frameworks, which are objects, are records, and our fields. We can go more. The next slide.
Yes. Marilo, I just wanted to give heads up to our audiences. I will share a few quick tips for the smooth functioning of the session. The session is recorded, so you can revisit this on our YouTube channel. If you're facing any issues like difficulty loading the session, click on the event link and refresh the page. Um, and yes, we'll move forward. But Marilo, I just wanted to ask you before we move forward. I just wanted to ask you this before we started. Why do you think security, data security, is important in any organization or businesses, and how should companies handle them?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Hasi, for the question. It's a good question, actually. And for every organization, for every business, it's very important the security part. As we know, Salesforce is in the cloud, and it has the security part. Accessing the organization is very important. To as a multi-tenant, is using you have your apartment, you own, let's say, private apartment, but with a shared resources. And to access the apartment is your security. These are very important tips, and every organization, every business has the security part very important. Especially we are discussing now for young professional, for young people, for student, and other people who wants to learn and to go on Salesforce fundamentals. If they want to jumpstart their career in Salesforce, it's very important and it has very weight in the exam. They're going to do the security part, and that's why the security part they have to learn it, let's say, very much. They need it, and it's very good. It's a really good requirement in the Salesforce certification and in their day-to-day working job aspect, which is going to be as a Salesforce administrator, as a Salesforce associate, developer. It's very important to know who sees what, or what access has each one in the business user. For example, if a business user runs a report, but the report goes to the CEO but cannot see all the records, what's the fault here? Is the security, the access part, because this user don't have the access to all the records, or this user don't have access to some fields in those records, and that is causing all the other, and even automation. If a Salesforce developer, Salesforce other professional do any automation and other stuff working that, if they don't have the appropriate security and sharing settings, access settings, it will fail this part. So this is the basic, and it's very important to learn more and to be very proficient here in the access the security lawyers in the layers in the Salesforce. I
Yes.
can
Yeah. Please go on.
I was going on with the next slide describing this, but if you have any announcement for the people who are following us, it's okay.
No, I just have one announcement, which is if you have any questions regarding this topic, please post them in the comment section. And at the end of the session, we'll be going to ask all the questions to our expert. Yeah, that's it. So you can go on, Marilo.
Okay, thank you, Haste. So if you see here in the presentation, you see the security layers, the big picture. This is the Salesforce big picture of security layers. So as I said the analogy before, I said you have, let's say your production is you have your own apartment, but using the shared resources in the building. In this case, you have your organization, which is the platform web application. You have your organization, and the organization has authentication because you use your email, your password, multi-factor authentication. Salesforce administrator can place a trusted IP ranges, and can place a login IP ranges and login hours for you to access the organization. This is the primary access you have. You open the door to the organization. You open the door to the platform. And then after that, you open the door to the platform. You are in the platform. Then we have three more, as we described it before. The data access can be controlled on the object level, on the record level, and as well on the field level. So then you have the object level, the record, and the field one. The object one, as I described it before, are the objects in Salesforce, are the tables. Is the category of information who stores information about a different, let's say the account, store information about the business, or contacts, store information about the contacts, about persons, or opportunities, store information about the opportunity you are dealing with, or leads, store information about the prospects you are dealing. So this is the object. And to access the object, we have the CRED is known, is create, read, edit, delete. So the access, the capability to use the object can be controlled with create. So you leave access for a business user to create new records in this object. You leave access only to read the object. You give access only to edit, or you give access to delete the records. And the data access, then if you go more down, object, record, field, it goes, the field level security is only with visible. You let the field visible, you let the field read only, or you let the field required. But to go to the field, that's why I pass it to the field now. You need the object access, the record access, and then the field access. If you don't have to starting by the object access, you cannot access the field because you don't even see the object. You cannot see that field. If you don't have access to the object, for example, you don't have access to the record because the record, um, let's say record, second record in the object account, you cannot see if you don't see the object. So this is that's why these are the layers, if you can see, of the security. You start by the organization. If you don't have access, of course you cannot get into the platform. You get access to the organization with authentication, email, password, and you have to keep in mind in Salesforce, the email part, the username is unique. So it needs to be the username is email format, but it needs to be unique across all the Salesforce platforms. And you access the organization through authentication to trusted email IP ranges, which the Salesforce administrator of the company provide this and place the trusted IP ranges through login IP ranges and login hours. The Salesforce administrator places the login IP ranges and the login hours through the profile. Profile is at the setup at the Salesforce platform, and they change the profile for user, and they place a login IP ranges restriction here. So these ranges you can log in. You cannot, for example, if you are in a coffee bar, Starbucks, you cannot log in there. You can log in to only these IP ranges and to only business login hours. For example, from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. You cannot log into the organization at 6 p.m., for example. And after the login, you are now part of the organization. So you are in now. You open the door to the organization, which is the platform, the org. Then you can see accounts, you can see leads, the object, but you cannot see opportunity, let's say. This is because it needs um, the object security access. So the objects are placed by license and CRED. CRED is create, read, edit, delete. Also now is an update. So it's like create, read, edit, update, and delete permissions, which are placed by the Salesforce administrator through profile or permission set. Profiles are the profiles in the Salesforce. You place a user in a profile. Let's say Salesforce has the system administrator profile, which has the access to the all the objects, has access edit, delete access, and there are other profiles. For example, let's say we can have the standard user profile who don't have access to delete records, who don't have access, for example, to visit, to check, to open some objects, and they place the access to profiles and permission set. Permission set is just adding up access. So if a user wants more access, it's in the same profile, let's say standard user, but his position, his function in the company is required and is needed to have more access to in a different object or in different record. You add the system administrator adds this access through permission set, and permission set is only to add access, not to restrict access, only add up more access. And you place this permission set to that user. You assign that user you want to give more access to this permission set, which you added the 1, 2, 3, 4 accesses to, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 records. And then you have the after you're in the organization, you're in the object, then you have the records. So you're into the Salesforce platform, you're into the account object, then you have the records of this object. So you have, let's say, this account, you have, let's say, 40 records, which are the accounts, the businesses that the company has. And to access it, the record, there are four main, because they can be more with Apex and the developing part, they can be more, but to declarative way, there are four ways. Is OWD, which is organization-wide default, and organization-wide default, it plays you the basic restriction level. The basic restriction level in this case, for the record access, is you give no access. You give only the read only. For example, they don't have access to edit, they don't have access to delete and change, transfer ownership. And a recommendation from Salesforce is that, for example, if you have a company, you're a system administrator, and you have only, let's say, one business user who you don't want to give him full access to all the records. In this case, if it's only one business user who don't uh, have to have access to all the records, that means that you need to place the organization-wide default of your organization to place it to private. And if you place it to private, he don't have access. So the access to private, if you place it, will be only the record owners who created the record will have access on that record, not the others, because it will be private. And if you place the org-wide default, the organization-wide default, if you place private, that means only the record owners will have access to the records. But then you go, then you go with role hierarchy. With role hierarchy, you have your role in the business. You have the teams, which has the upper hierarchy and the managers, and then it goes up till the vice, let's say, and then to the CEO. And to the CEO can see all the down, which is down in the hierarchy, can see all the records owners, but who's down, let's say, associate in the role hierarchy, is down, he cannot see the upper level, who owns, for example, let's say a record is created by the manager. The associate now who's down in the role hierarchy cannot see the records created by the manager. And this is a way you open up access. So you start private with organization-wide default. You make it private, so you want only who the people who created the records to see the record, to change, to transfer the record, and then you open up access with role hierarchy. And then this is vertical access, role hierarchy. Then, but you want maybe to edit to open up access with lateral access. So you use the sharing roles. The sharing roles, in this case, you have a condition. Let's say one associate from one department wants to see another from another department wants to see his records. In this case, you have a condition from the records owned by XYZ in the other department, share with the public group or the user, in this case with the public groups or the role hierarchy, the associate you wanted to share. And this is access, is lateral access. Let's say horizontal access. It's not only vertical, which provides you role hierarchy. So now you are org wide default, which is you make it private. The access to the records, where to the records. But I mean, you have the organization access, you have the object access, but we're talking about the record access. You have those two. Now where to the record? And you have the private or by default only the record owners have the record, access to the records. Then you open up access by row hierarchy in vertical way. Then you open up access more by sharing rows in horizontal way. And then you have teams and manual sharing. You have account teams, opportunity teams, which you create this team, let's say this team, and they have access to the records. They are a team part. They are part of the team. And manual sharing is in the Salesforce platform. A user, for example, I created a record. I have the option to share it, or it can be disabled by the administrator. But I have option to share it. This record I created, I have access to another user. So this is the manual sharing. And now you are here. You are in the organization access, object access. So you are in the organization XYZ. This is the company. And then you are in the object account. And then you are in the record account second, which is business. Now they're doing collaboration. And now it has some fields, and you need access to the field. And what I said before is the access to the field is you make the field visible, you make the field required, or you can hide the field to field level security. And this is the other, this is, let's say, the last part of the fields. And it's important, even the fields, there are some users who don't want to see this field or who don't need to see this field. And also, for example, there are fields, let's say social security number, or let's say credit card fields who collect the information data which are sensitive in this case. And you have the field type, you place the field type, and maybe for some user it's easy to hide that field through page layout. There are layout for different pick lists, shows different pick lists and different business scenario for different users who are using the object. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 level of security layers you will need on the Salesforce to jumpstart the security and the access in the Salesforce platform. We can go more in the next slide. And now, how the record access is controlled in Salesforce. So as I discussed before, the record access, I discussed it in some levels. Which you start by the org wide default. You start by org wide default. You are seeing for 1 second. You are seeing this picture. This is the role hierarchy. For example, you start by org wide default, and the org wide default is private, and that means only the record owner can have access the record. And then if you go more, okay, and then if you go more, you open up this access. You open up this access uh, by the role hierarchy. So your company has a role hierarchy, and then, for example, you have the CEO, you have the sales executive, you have the West sales rep. For example, the user who is in this West sales rep, he cannot see the records created by the CEO, but the CEO, in this case, or the sales executive, can see the records created by the West sales rep because they're down in the hierarchy. And but now, what's the problem? For example, is you need to share this to share not only vertical, but you need to share between West sales rep and East service rep. In this case, they're not in the same vertical access, and you share, but you use sharing settings, sharing roles. You base the condition or based on a criteria. You enter the criteria from West sales rep, and you want to share the records who are created by West sales rep when you want to share with the other. So you enter the field, the operator equal, so which fields you want, and the value, and share with role or public groups. So the system administrator can create some public groups, so it's easy to add some users in these public groups to share the records. Also, Salesforce added restriction rules, which are part now. Let's say after organization-wide default was the only one and the first one to have restriction rules for records. And Salesforce also created this year have the restriction rules so you can filter records based on criteria, record criteria. And these are the restriction. These are different from the permission set. The permission set only opens up access. And going more on the next slide, what are the ways of restriction and opening record access to the user? As I said in the beginning, for example, in the picture you saw it here, this is still sharing. This is the manual sharing. You have the Salesforce platform. This is, you are in the Salesforce platform. You see here, you are in the account, which is the object, and you are in the record of the account, which is Burlington Textiles Corp of America. This is the record. And now you want this record to share. You have the organization wide default, which is the restriction way. You have private. So you created the record. You are the record owner. If you see here, account owner, you have created the record. So you are the owner of this account record, and you want to share with somebody else. And sharing this is the manual doing only with him. If you have, for example, you want to share all uh, the records created by you or by condition. To another one, you have, for example, the sharing rules. If you want all the records created by you to be seen by your manager, another is the role hierarchy. And if you want some records to be shared with the team you are working, is the count teams in this way. And the other way is the manual sharing. You just go to the record. So you are in the organization, you are in the object account, you are in the Burlington Textiles Corp of America record, and you go, you select, if you see here, you select, you do sharing, and you share with another user. So you select search the user, and you give access to this user, then read only or edit access, and all the access, case access, and other. For example, it would be a good question if you see here is share access, it's C, and the next one it has account access, case access, and the opportunity access, because these access are controlled by parent. And controlled by parent means if it is controlled by parents, access to any account, it inherits the access you have to that account to the other one. And that's why it needs access to determine and to the others one. Okay, going more to the next one. What are the considerations related to the field level security? So field level security in Salesforce, you go to setup, you go to profiles, and you have the field level security. The field level security, you can make it, you can give read access or edit access. So to the profile you have, for example, in this case, if you see here, uh, let's say you're a system administrator, you went to the setup of the Salesforce organization, and you go on search the profiles, and then you went to the sales executive profile. This case is the sales executive profile, and you want to give some field access. If you see account name, account number, you want some access for them. You want the read access or edit access, or to remove the edit access and to let only the read access. Another way for the access is to make the page layout. So the page layout of the object, you just make it visible, the field, or don't make it visible through the page layout. Another one is when you create a field. First, if you're a system administrator, you create a field, you make it universally required, that field. And that means the field is required. So page layout, you make it visible and you make it required. Through profile, you give edit access or you give it read access. And for example, read access, edit access, these are through profiles. But through page layout, you can use the view access and you can use the other access I just said now. And which one is during the when you have a new object, you create a new, you have the object, a custom object. Let's say you have created a custom field. In that case, you can make that field universally required. Or you can make a field required, not universal, but required to a page layout or visible to a page layout. Or you can make through profile, you can go through profile and place the field level security. Uh, for that profile to some fields, read, and give them read access or edit access. This is the field level security. Going more, and before starting the Q&A, I wanted to share the screen. Okay, I don't. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Okay, for this, I want to open again. Trailblazer.me is your Salesforce profile. This will be your profile, your CV, in this case, online CV. It will have all the information regarding you. This is an easy sharing link. You will have to share your profile with others, with employees, colleagues. This is the Tailhead, is the platform for learning Salesforce, and the community tags, the question and answer Q&A, you have done it, the connection you have it, the skills, the App Exchange favorite apps maybe you have been used or tested to App Exchange, the super badge you have done on Tailhead, and the certification you have won. This is very important because it's your profile on the Salesforce ecosystem. And you have the app launcher here, which you can go now visit Tailhead, Tailbase community, App Exchange, Idea Exchange, even Salesforce Help. The Tailhead is the, let's say, the online university of Salesforce. You can learn, you can there, you have hands-on, you can practice. Let's go to Tailhead. So if you see, this is Tailhead now. You can learn through trails, trail mix, which are some mixes of trails, module, projects to get hands-ons. Or you have the Tailhead Academy to learn more on Tailhead with certified Salesforce instructor and with them. And Tailhead Live, so you can watch it for free. Tailhead Live, there are some Tailhead discussion, for example, about like this security and others. So you have the credential, the super badges, and the certification you can do. You have the community to discuss, and for companies, you have uh, customer stories, sales enablement, tailhead for companies, etc. And now, what I wanted to discuss here, so you have again the app launcher here, and to the tailhead, you have your profile setting and hands-on orgs. Hands-on orgs is what I described it before. Is you have the production, which is let's say you are working in a company who is using Salesforce, and that company has the Salesforce platform. This is the production. This live. You're working, and other colleagues are working on that. So this is the live one. This is called production. But there are other orgs, so you can just do for hands-on, just for fun, just for testing. And in this case, Trailhead has a playground. You can create a new playground. It's an organization, which is a playground, is customized by Salesforce with metadata. It has it to do the trails here, the models. And in this case, for example, I have a playground here, 2022. So I can launch it. Okay, I don't know, you can see the screen, yes. And for example, I launched, this is the playground. If you see the Salesforce platform, this is just a playground for you can check around, you can do some hands-on challenges on Tailhead, and you can learn here. And this is the app launcher. It has all the apps here. We're on the sales app now, and this, what we discussed, are the tabs. So if you see many tabs, the tabs are the visual presentation here for the object. So let's go to the account. This is the object. This is the list view. I want to see all the records in this object. So I had access to the platform. You see, I have access to the object account. I can see the tab, and I see these records. I have access to these records. Let's say this record here. So this record has related some other records and has the details. Details are the fields. If you see, this is a field, account name. So I can add it. This is a field. This is website is a field. For example, I can make to don't have access to this field, or to remove the edit access from this field, or to not make this field visible, or to make this field required. So if we go to the setup, we're in the setup. One important thing here are the profiles. So you need the access to the object first. These are the profiles, so you can create clone and have a custom profile. But what we discussed here are, for example, standard user profile. If we go here, you have the profile here. You have the option to check the object setting, app settings, the Sign It apps, Visual Force page, flow, and other system permission, the login hours we discussed, super files, and the login IP ranges. What about tacit IP ranges? Maybe you're saying about the picture. Tacit IP ranges are made from the organization one, not from the profile. And then, for example, you have the object settings. To the object, you see this profile, in this case, the standard user. This profile, it has the object access, the counts, all the objects you can see here, all the objects. And you give access, for example, to the object permission, to the counts, to this object, this profile, the people, the user who are to this profile have uh, access, sorry, create, edit, delete access. And the tab is on because the tab is needed to have the profile. As I discussed it here, this is the tab. And you see all the access you have, and you can change the access to this. So this is the profile, which is very important because it's the first access you have to the objects and fields. And then you have access to the profile. But you want to add some access to the org by default. So what I discussed after the object is the record level security access here. And the access to the records are the OWD, so the org by default. You have, for example, lead. You see the object lead, it has private, which means all the records created on the object leads have access only the record creator, the record owner have access to them. But they can share access through, or they can open this access through role hierarchy, sharing roles, account teams, opportunity teams, case teams, or manual sharing. So if you see here the org-wide default, in this case, opportunities public read-write. Campaign are public for access. It means they have a public access. So mostly some of them are private, and open up access through sharing roles, for example. Sharing roles. You have all the sharing roles. You need to create a new sharing roles for leads. So I want the leads from, uh, let's say, test. So base record owner or based on criteria. If you make a base record owner, you want from the roles from you want to share the records of the lead object. We are in the lead object, don't forget that, who have this role with another role or with another public group if administrator have created a public group, for example, in this case, with, let's say, another who is not in the role hierarchy vertical, I'm thinking, let's say with marketing. You want the Western sales team to share the records owned by them at the lead object with the marketing team. And you want them to give access to a read write or read only. And you share. Okay, I just doing testing because, as I said, this is a playground on the trailhead, and that's why it's just for testing, and it doesn't occur me any problem or any issue to my organization in this case. So this is the sharing setting. So you have the org by default, you make it private, you restrict access, and then you open up access by sharing roles. Or you, if you need a vertical access, you open up access with role hierarchy. So you have it here, for example. Okay. For example, you have it here, a row hierarchy. The users in this installation and repair service in this row, if they own a record, they cannot see a record owned by the SVP, but the SVP can see the record owned by the installation and repair service through or row hierarchy. This is a vertical access. So this is a vertical giving access, opening up access after the org wide default is private. You open up vertical access by row hierarchy, and then you open up horizontal or lateral access. For example, you give access to VP North America sales to installation and repair service. So these are not vertical access. You give access, lateral access, you give it, let's say from VP, the records owned on the lead object of VP North America sales, you give access to the installation repair services who are here to this row hierarchy. And this is the lateral access. Okay, so you see, for example, you can check here. You can add another row here, row hierarchy. You can add all the, you can see it for the user, the rows, here row hierarchy. So this is a row hierarchy. If you can figure in your mind, after you have the organization, the access to the organization, after you have the access to the object, which you can manipulate, modify the access to the object through profile and permission set. And it gives open up access or give access with create, read, edit, delete, and update. And after this organization object, you have a record access. The record access, in this case, start by org wide default, goes on vertical with row hierarchy, goes on lateral with sharing rules, and goes on another with teams, account teams, case team, opportunity teams, and manual sharing. Manual sharing was I am the record owner, so account owner. So it's me. I'm the record owner of Burlington Textile Corp of America. And I want to share this. I want to redirect case I want the private with another user in this case, or with another role or a public group. So I want to share. This is a manual sharing. I'm doing manual sharing this. Sometimes this is not very recommended because many business users, they can do many sharing with them, which is more better for data quality, which is better for the system administrator to have it more managed, the security and the access part. Because as I said in the beginning, and Hasti described it, it's very important. This is the layer of security layers and the access levels. Um, and so it can hide this, so you don't have the opportunity to share by manual share. It depends by the object. And going on here, you have the hands-on the playground. I was just playing here around to this playground and showing the objects, showing the roles, the sharing rules, if you see, when you say users, the users. What I said for the user in this case is the email address. So if you see here, the email, for example, you have a 2 3 different platform, but you can have the email can be the same because you need a real email to have it, the information to come to you, the email, and the username must be unique. That's why this is a new username. If you are another organization, Salesforce, it needs a username to be unique there. So these are the users. You place the row here. You have the profile to play around the objects and the permission set to add more access on the objects, on the records. So you have on the fields. So you have permission set to add more access to the objects and on the fields. So this is a playground, but you can connect orgs. Maybe you have created a dev org. You can connect other org here. So you just connect org, go on that org you have created, a developer edition. There are other organization actually you can play around and you can test the security part, but on the playground you don't have are called sandbox. You have the dev sandbox and the other sandbox you can test, and it's more used if you're let's say system administrator or system developer, and you use this sandbox to go on to test it new function extension on the Salesforce platform, and then you pass it all these uh, requirements you have done the old function, you pass it to production through change set. So you do a migration from that environment you have been work on the sandbox, you do on the organization one. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for now, and Hasti is back. I want to leave some minutes. Actually, I saw the clock, and I want to leave some minutes for Q&A. It's better. So I can go on and on the Salesforce platform and describe and show it, but it's better to leave the last minutes for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Marilo. That was quite an interesting and in-depth demonstration of sales for security layers. How I mean, the way you have explained it, and on the Salesforce org, and also the presentation. I'm sure audiences must have gotten to understand and know a lot more about Salesforce security layers and how one can implement them in their organization and business. So thank you so much for that. So we have questions from our audiences. Okay, Kate Stevens is asking, what are the major concerns about data security?
Okay, thank you, Kate, for the question. It's a very good one. And the data security, the most concern are the unauthorized access to business users. In this case, business user, as I said, the recommendation is if only one business user doesn't need to have access to a record, that means you have to place all the organization by default to private, because if only one business would have access to that records, he can change it, or he can modify it, or he don't know by, but he can do a change, which is very important, and it accelerate and it cause problem to maybe you have automation, you have a workflow, you have a process builder, you have a flow, you have some automations and data quality, which it cause this access and authorized access, it cause all issues to the other automation and other data quality done to the you have done to enforce the health condition of the organization. And it's very important the data access and the security part in this.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for that. I hope, Kate, that answers your question. Another question is from Isha. She's asking, is there a difference between cybersecurity and data security?
Thank you, Isha. Yes. So, what I'm aware now, because I finished in computer science, so data security, what I'm discussing here is about data, is the security access about data. So, the access you have to access this data, this information. So, in this case, the data, as I said in Salesforce, is stored. The data are stored on the object, records, and fields. So, you have the data, a user press it, so you have the field name, let's say social security number. A user entered data to this field, and this some other users can access this. This is the data access about the user. Cybersecurity is a different security access. It's not about the data, but it's more, let's say, online, and it considers not only the data, but it considers text and other phishing and other information. This one is about only the data access, the data security on the platform, giving up access and restricting access.
Yes, it's more organizational based.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, we have a question from Jane Keith. Does two-factor authentication provide an added security layer to data? Please elaborate on how two-factor authentication different from Salesforce security layers.
Yes, sure. So if you we show here the first picture which was the, let me check it again. Okay, the security layers, the big picture we showed here. So you start in with the organization, the object, the records, and the fields. And in this case, the first one to enter, to open the key, is the organization. So the first thing is the authentication. You do the authentication through email or password, and you add more security here for the user. You can add it. Salesforce has option to add the trusted IP ranges for the organization. Has the opportunity for the system administrator to add the logging IP ranges and the logging hours through profiles. I showed it before to the hands-on. Through profiles, you can add this profile standard user. I want the logging IP ranges from 192.168.002 to you add the ranges and the login hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. the business hours. So these all are security to the first access to the organization access. And you add more access here, security access, you add it to the first one, which is the authentication. You do the authentication, you do with two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication or single sign-on. So with two-factor authentication, for example, you have something you know, you have something you own. In this case, something you know is the password, something you own is your phone. You have another step of verification here. You have your email, and you know something you know is the password. You enter the password, and then it requires something else, which is something you own. In this case, maybe let's say a fisher or attacker knows something what you know, which is the password, but he cannot access it still because you don't have something that you own. He don't have your phone in this case. So you place your email, you place your password, and then it requires the code verification from the Salesforce authenticator, or there are the Google authenticator. So it requires the code from the Salesforce authenticator then to approve it, and then you do this authentication to enter in if it's inside the trusted IP ranges, and if it's still inside the login IP ranges or the login hours. So this is about the two-factor authentication or MFA multi-factor authentication.
Yes, that clarifies the difference between the two. So thank you for that. Okay, so that was our last question, and that is it. Thank you so much, Marilo. I just want to, I really enjoyed the presentation, the way you have explained everything very meticulously, and the way you have shown, by demonstrating in the organization, in the Salesforce org. So thank you so much. I just want to just tell a little something about us. So we are FENs. We are registered Salesforce partner, and we work with some really noteworthy clients and organizations globally. So as we are growing, we are also hiring for multiple roles. If you want to work with us, please send in your applications through website portal, or you can drop us an email at careers@fens.com. Um, and we look forward to working with a new vibrant team. And once again, Marilo, thank you so much for taking time out on a Friday and sharing your knowledge with us. We are grateful to have you today. It was truly, truly a wonderful experience. You can follow us to all our audiences who are listening. You can follow us to know more about our upcoming events on all our social media platforms. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can also follow Marilo on his LinkedIn to know more about all the interesting information that he puts out. We look forward to seeing you in our next LinkedIn Live. Till then, stay tuned and have a wonderful weekend. Marilo, thanks again. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Asti. It was my pleasure. Thank you, everyone who was watching us, and I hope it was a useful information. And you will go on, as I said, you will jumpstart your career on the Salesforce ecosystem. Why not use the Salesforce Certified Associate and start more and follow Afenzians to check more information and knowledge sharing with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.